Hello, welcome to another episode of the Pianoforte Podcast. I am your co-host Felicia, and I'm joined with my co-host Audrey. And today we have a guest with us. Hello, Robert.
Hi.
Hi, Robert.
Hi. Glad to be here.
Oh.
Awesome.
Yeah. Before we start with whatever we're gonna be talking about, the topic, which
Not quite clear yet, but we'll figure it out.
we haven't decided.
That's the fun, being on the
That's the
journey.
fun about having a guest, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Do you want to start with a little introduction? Who are you?
Well, my name's Robert, as stated before. I'm a musician from the Freiburg area, so we live in the same city.
We do. I am still in Freiburg. I haven't moved anywhere yet.
Yes.
Yes.
Still coming.
Probably.
I'm working as a mastering engineer, so in music production. I'm working in the theater as a stage musician, and I'm teaching currently.
Yeah.
And I have taught at the university that you went
We
to.
attended. So
Yes.
just like Lindsay, he was our docent at our music university, music college, whatever that thing is. That's where we met. But you also graduated from the same school.
I did. It was a different time, though. It was
like a long
yeah,
period.
it was much earlier,
before,
and it was
yeah.
a very different school back then. So,
Yeah, because the
I know.
management changed
Yeah,
during
yeah.
my time.
but I did study in Freiburg. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is a good starter. You are very active, with the I would say the big aspects of music, like teaching, performing, and sound engineering, recording stuff. But I guess you are the bigger capacity is the recording part, right?
Probably the biggest at the moment is being on stage,
Oh,
because
really?
I just came. We just finished a 48 show run of
the
our theater
one.
production. Yeah.
The children theater.
Yes,
one.
I play usually children's pieces, or like family pieces as they call it in the theater.
Oh.
It's super fun because you play a heck of a lot of shows for a heck of a lot of children, and they all love it, and it's great.
Oh,
It's really fun, and the productions are very high quality and
Ah,
usually very professionally done. Yeah.
okay. I suddenly just felt bad because I've never seen him perform. for that.
There's still time. I mean, I'm back at the theater for another production in late March,
Cool.
but that's not a that's like the opposite of a children's piece.
Oh,
It's a very sad, very dramatic piece.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
cut me in. I guess I'm in for this stuff as well. I mean, yeah, why not? Was the theater project the previous one? Was it like an original score, Sorry, something dropped.
This is your phone.
My phone.
Okay.
I'll grab it later. But was it like an original score, like original story, or?
It's not an original story. It's Pippi Longstockings.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard of that, but
I don't think it's particularly famous outside of Central Europe. At least
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure, but it's very, very popular here in Germany. It's Swedish in origin. It's Astrid Lindgren. I don't know if you've heard of her.
I have
She's
heard.
she's a very famous children's author, and she wrote the original, which was, I think, books, and then they made films out of them in multiple episodes. And we played a version of that, which was like an episode piece. So we have a couple of different stories that are, that were, glued together to form a bigger theater piece. And
that is cool.
but
That's
that
cool.
that part of the production was original, and all the music was original, written by
Oh.
2 musicians from Berlin,
Ah,
coincidentally. Yeah.
why coincidentally?
Well, one of them is from near Freiburg originally,
Ah,
and she lives in Berlin now.
okay.
Yeah.
So okay. That and the next one is
The next one is going to be
Are you allowed to do a spoiler? I mean, by the time
Sure,
this
yeah, I mean-
episode is up, it's already
Yeah, I mean,
way over.
The children's production is done already. So
yeah, I mean,
I can talk about that
one.
And the other one, nobody told me not to talk about it. So I guess.
Oh, you didn't sign a contract where it's like.
I guess I'm allowed to. And the production has been played already last year. It's just they're doing a few more shows this year because the demand is there. And I'm just jumping in for somebody else who couldn't make it for this year. So.
Okay.
And that's a production called Schauinsland, named after one of the taller mountains in the Black Forest.
Yeah.
And it's a very dramatic piece about a group of English students in the early 30s who came to Germany. I don't know the exact backstory. I'll have to check it out. But who came to Germany or to this part of Germany to walk up or to hike up the Schauinsland.
Oh.
And unfortunately, they've chosen a very terrible time to do that because it's snowstorming and they're getting lost. And I think 28 children or something, 5 die of exhaustion before everyone gets rescued. So it's a very sad, dramatic piece.
Oh my God.
And the music is equally, well, it's a modern, you would call it chamber opera, maybe.
Okay.
Like a mixture between like a theater piece and an opera.
Can you elaborate a little bit like chamber opera for those who are not common like musicians that are not so familiar? What is chamber orchestra, like a chamber opera? What's instrument or?
I mean, I can tell you what instruments are going to be in that production.
Okay, yeah,
because it's different.
It's different for a lot of.
It's a contemporary piece, so it's not a traditional orchestra in the sense that you have strings, woodwinds, and brass and percussion. It's more, we have 2 vibraphones, drum set, electric bass, and a string quartet.
Are you gonna be? Which instrument
are you play?
Oh, you play.
Yeah.
You're playing with. We haven't mentioned he plays a heck ton of instruments.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying.
Just like
what
many
instruments
of our
actually?
other guests that just like play 700 instruments. He's one of them as well. What instruments do you play?
I started out playing piano when I was little, like 5 years old. Then I started playing guitar, drums, bass, saxophone.
Wait, you play saxophone?
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Violin,
at all.
viola. Latest one is flute.
You play a flute as well?
Yeah. Kind of everything. And with drum set, obviously it's like orchestral percussion. So there's marimba, vibraphone, timpani, like small percussion and all that stuff.
Did you take like lessons for all of them, or did you do some?
I took lessons for piano, drums, and guitar when I was little, or not little, when I was a child, all the way through my teenage years.
Okay.
And then the saxophone I learned by myself. And bass kind of as well. I mean, I had bass lessons, but it was more like I played together with a guitarist, and it wasn't exactly bass lessons. It was more like I just started playing bass and figured it out.
But you also did bass for your bachelor.
I did, yeah. I studied bass. Originally, I studied drums for 2 semesters, but then I switched.
What? I didn't know about that.
Because I wanted to play notes and not just sounds. So.
You were at least my docent for ear training.
Yeah.
And one of the thing in ear training is the dictations. I am terrible at like rhythm dictations.
No, you're not.
I am.
I've seen your exams.
Well, there you go. From an actual docent in my class. This episode could also be roasting Audrey in the class.
Well, I just gave you a compliment though, didn't I? I didn't really roast you.
Yeah, you didn't. But I feel like that is my weakest suit, just because it's a lot of sound. That as you said, like you wanted to play notes and not just sounds.
Yeah.
In my head, also rhythm dictations is like a lot of sound, but not notes.
Well, there's music to be found in sounds as well.
True, but for me it's harder.
It is. I think it's a little more abstract because notes and harmonies kind of tell you where to go. They tell you if something's sad or happy, or anxious or whatever.
It
It's much easier to understand. And like if you were to maybe transfer to the realm of art, playing notes and harmony might be more figurative painting, and just rhythms or drum grooves or whatever might be more abstract. There's still a picture in there, there's still meaning, and there's still a story to be understood, but it's much harder to do with just drums, I think. But I mean, a rhythm dictation isn't really drums as well. It's more like it's an exercise, right?
True.
So I don't know how musical you can make rhythm dictations, without making them ridiculously hard.
You did some stuff. I remember like some Verschiebung. What is Verschiebung in English?
Shift.
Some shifts, yeah.
Polyrhythms.
Yeah, some kind of. It was not like crazy hard polyrhythm.
No, I don't think I did any polyrhythms.
No, you didn't actually. It's just like Verschiebung. It's like
rhythmical displacements.
Yeah.
What is it?
Rhythmical displacements.
Yeah.
There you go. Felicia, chime in anytime you want, Fish.
This is very entertaining to listen to. So, okay, I'll try to chime in more.
Yeah, that and I'm just like, I don't understand any of this. Sometimes, like, I'm just.
Oh, I mean, that was one of the big advantages of having drum lessons very early, because you get a very like intimate feel for rhythm, right? Which a lot of instruments or instrumentalists who don't do anything particularly percussive struggle with, right? If you look at classical string players, for example, I've had very, very mixed experiences with classical string players, although they're all incredibly highly educated.
I would agree,
but it's just not as
tight.
It's not as tight, and it's not a part of the education as much as it is for popular musicians, I think.
True.
They do have rhythm training. They do play incredibly difficult music rhythmically. If you look at something like the Sacre du Printemps, the Stravinsky piece that we talked about in class once, if you remember.
Rite of Spring, right?
It's very challenging rhythmically, right? And they can play it, but it's a different approach to rhythm.
Yeah.
It's not as exact, and it's not as accurate.
True. I think a lot of those like harder pieces, of course there's always like a guideline as per how to play it, but it's not as you said, it's not as accurate. It's not like as it's not as straight to the point, kind of. Whereas like in popular music, I think it is a bit more dominant to be more precise, to be more tight,
it needs to groove, right?
It needs to groove. It
and
needs to
I think
roll.
One thing that doesn't get talked about enough in classical education is it needs to groove as well.
True.
A Mozart symphony needs to groove just as much as a Bruno Mars piece.
That is a good,
because as soon as there's rhythm involved to a point where it has a steady pulse and it makes you want to move, and classical music does do that, I think. I mean, there's ballets. People dance to ballets all the time.
True.
Obviously.
And also like it needs the steady tempo, because if not, then how are the ballerinas gonna
exactly? And if you listen to something like a Viennese waltz, right, that grooves like mad. It's just a very different kind of groove. It's I remember somebody taking my classical music class in university who has never really listened to classical music before, and what they were alienated by in classical music is the lack of what we in music production call transients.
True.
Which is
the
just hard percussive hits.
The strong points.
Which in pop music that would be kick drums and snare drums and all that kind of all that kind
also
of stuff.
Just for a reference for those non-musicians, again, transients is like when you see like a wave of the audio wave, you can see like a line where it's like a sudden hit, like that is like a harder louder noise usually, instead of just like continuous thing. And I think a lot of people who are not so familiar with classical music, but they're familiar with popular music, they tend to have that like the imagination that classical music is just,
and it's obvious
without transients.
It's kind of obvious that happens too, because it's being played in a very different context. If you sit in a concert hall and somebody hits the bass drum on stage, you're not getting very strong transients because everything is kind of getting lost in the room,
reverb.
Right? So classical recordings reflect that as well. They're not particularly rich in transients. They don't have, particularly percussive information, even though there is very percussive pieces out there, especially in contemporary music, right?
Yeah.
But you never reach that point of attack and that point of aggressiveness in the transients that you do with popular music. And if you're used to that, if you're used to a 4-on-the-floor kick drum in dance music, classical music won't do that for you.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's just different worlds. But classical music has a lot of other elements that I think are just as interesting and just as enticing.
Yeah. We were talking last time, a few episodes ago, that I did like a habanera.
Yes.
Okay. So a habanera is not particularly super classical, but it is somewhat still considered, because it is still sometimes played with orchestra, and people who listen to popular music might consider that as somewhat in the classical realm. But also habanera, like those kind of like a bit more danciness, that has the danciness element to it, I think also has more transients, right? Like, do you have any like recommendations, maybe like for those who don't listen to classical music, that might be interested in or easier to take in?
Yeah, I mean, there's music that's incredibly easy to take in, which is a lot of classical era music. Haydn and Mozart usually.
Haydn and Mozart.
But if you're looking for strong transients and like very stronger-ish, like a more modern take on rhythm in classical music, I think contemporary classical music does a lot of that really well. Some early 20th century, but mostly later 20th century and 21st century music,
I guess. Okay.
And
so like I mean, I wouldn't say definitely, but I don't know. But the thing is, the musician, the composer that came to my mind when like, oh yeah, it kind of grooves to me, is like Tchaikovsky for some reason. But Tchaikovsky is none in the realm that you talk about.
I mean, he wrote some beautiful waltzes, for example.
Yeah,
those do groove.
That's what I was thinking about, like the waltzes, the dances from Tchaikovsky. They just, in my opinion, for classical music, they grooves.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of very rhythmically oriented music by Shostakovich, for example.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Stravinsky, obviously. Prokofiev.
Yeah, and Stravinsky,
and a lot of modern music as well. Philip Glass, for example, wrote beautiful music that's oftentimes not as strong in like transients, if we talked about that, but that's modern enough for somebody to get into very easily, I think.
Did we also do Philip Glass in your class? I think we did. Right?
We did,
like the 12th.
We listened to one of his symphonies, I think the second symphony. And no, that was Steve Reich that you talked about.
Oh yeah, Steve Reich. Yeah.
He has a lot of rhythmical stuff, right?
Yeah, Steve Reich is another one. Like minimal music in general, I think is a good place to start if you're used to listening to the more repetitive modern dance music, for example. If you want to get into classical music, I think that would be a good point to start. And then maybe work your way backwards and then realize that you like Bach, some stuff and you like other stuff.
That
not
Bach
so much.
also probably grooved.
He did. Yeah. He did. It's just different.
It is different. I don't know how to explain it though. It's just,
I don't know. It's just something you need to listen to, I think, and figure out whether you like it or you don't like it.
That is good advice.
Well,
But then also in classical music, there are quite a lot of dances, right? Like there's the Hungarian dances, the Slavonic dances, the Norwegian dances, Spanish dances as well.
yeah.
And they're all very, I feel like anything that is like has a dance in it is always very rhythmical.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
by the nature, no?
any classical music connected to some form of folk element, you know.
I think it's
There's
by the-
dances in all kinds of cultures.
Yeah, true.
And if you
Yeah,
listen to
with-
African classical music, if you will,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
that's very
the
rhythmical.
That's the. I mean, isn't African like classical music like the base of what we consider now as the popular music? I mean, hip hop,
A lot of it, yeah.
jazz,
Yeah, a lot of it.
yeah, right. 'Cause-
Originally.
or like Afro-Cuban, Afro-Brazilian.
And there's influences of all kinds of cultures. I mean, Arabic music,
Yeah,
a lot
true.
of our rhythmical components for our pop music today come from Arabic music, Indian music,
Mhm.
or, you know, Latin music, Latin American.
Oh, Latin is getting strong recently.
Yeah.
I just remember as well. Yeah, that's
It's all a big melting pot of
Right
rhythms
now-
and
right now,
cultures, I think,
yeah.
in music.
right now. Yeah,
And there's certainly elements that you hear a lot more than other elements. I think
Mhm.
most importantly the 4 and the floor kick drum. But I don't know if that has one particular origin. I think it's more, you know, it's rhythm broken down to like the most fundamental elements, much like it happened in the art movement in the early 20th century, right? Where people would just paint a black square. Like,
yeah.
what's the guy's name? Kazimir Malevich, something like that.
I don't know.
Is that
No idea.
That is another.
you might
class
want to fact check that.
that.
I just saw
we
it
might-
in
we
a
might- we might
museum at
need-
some point.
We might need to fact check that, but also art history was also a subject in our college, and that is
Yeah.
also a subject that I
Yeah.
could care probably. I could care probably more, but the thing is, the presentation of the docent was just like not interesting at all.
Yeah.
So at some point I was just like lost in the
Well, that's sad.
lost in
It's a
the
little bit
other
sad 'cause
homeworks
it's-
that I need to do.
It's a very exciting topic to talk
It
about.
could, yeah. I do still remember some of it, because we had a couple switches with the docenten, and I do still remember some of it that was like, oh, that is actually quite interesting. And then switch happens and like, forget it.
Yeah.
The other topics.
I think the thing about like Western art for me is that it's very far removed for me, so it's a bit harder to get into. Like there's a lot of nuances that I just miss, that I think it's more natural if you had grown up around the paintings.
True. That is also, yeah, like connectedness.
Like a lot of the symbols and things like that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but the art world is also fascinating. And a lot of what happened in the art world like 100 to 150 years ago is happening in music now. So music's kind of
Yeah.
lagging behind that a little bit in the abstraction of, you know, in the classical music world. A lot of contemporary classical music is ridiculously abstract.
Oh, yeah.
And the same kind of like pop music is going in a different direction now, because
True.
pop music is being broken down into its most elemental forms, or like most basic forms. And much like I said, you know, what was it, 1920s or something, 1910s, where art was kind of broken down into its fundamental pieces. Music's doing the same now, but it's different because music really works that way, you know, and art does too, but I feel like it moved away from that movement, or from that fad, if you can call it that, quite quickly.
Fad.
Whereas music has been broken down into its elemental pieces
Since
for
actually
like
for
a couple decades now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like
For
we're
a
getting
while.
away from that particularly
Yeah,
quickly.
actually it's staying.
Yeah.
Staying.
And it has advantages and disadvantages. I mean, one big advantage is it makes it incredibly accessible.
True.
It gives music the option or the ability to just be everywhere and, you know, be a companion to anything you do throughout the day, I guess.
Kind of like
it's not invasive in that you really
Yeah.
need to take time to appreciate it, but it does give you a lot of, entertainment, satisfaction, joy, whatever you want, without being super hard to understand.
I think
that's a great advantage, and it brings music to an incredibly wide audience. That plus the availability of it.
Yeah, the availability of it right now is
because it's never been cheaper and it's never been more accessible than today, both from an artistic standpoint and an economic standpoint.
Wow, that is a good switch of topic right now.
Well,
yeah. I mean, we really didn't specify any huge topic. I mean,
just steer me into any direction if we're going too far off topic, whatever that might be.
No, I
don't think anything's off topics.
Well, it's still music.
Pretty much.
So
it's still music, and our podcast is anyways sometimes quite random anyway.
Well,
like the what's like we're just talking as it goes, and we just find topics in any sort of music realm, I guess. So talking about like how easy it is to access music right now, do you think it's also like for the musicians like profitable? How do you see it? Because you also like produce and
I do produce
music and stuff like that. Do you think the accessibility, is it the word
accessibility? Yes,
accessibility, that word is it really good for musicians, or is it actually harder?
I think it's a huge double-edged sword,
right?
Because on the one hand, it's never been easier to publish.
It is so easy.
It's ridiculously easy. You can do it within an hour if you have material and some money. And it's not even not even expensive to do that.
It's not. I mean, true. Distribution platforms.
They've been popping out of the ground like mad.
There's
distribution services.
There's a lot of those, and I mean, we also use distribution service for the podcast. So what can I say about that?
They're great.
They're great. They're helpful. They're really helpful.
Very helpful. Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's as you said, it's
the double edge that I was talking about is just the sheer number of music, or the sheer amount of music that's being published.
You just compete with literally,
and it's not even that you directly compete with people. I think I've never really felt any competition to anything in particular online.
No, it's
the only competition I've felt is that I was kind of fighting a tidal wave of content that you kind of get swept up in, and then it doesn't, like, you never know where you end up. You never know if anybody actually finds your content. And I think that's the case for music as well as just content creators on YouTube, for example. Because for every topic you can think of, there's 10 YouTube channels who do basically the same videos. And in music, if you want to listen to, the 4 on the floor EDM, there's 100,000 artists who do
the title,
basically the same music. And
you will never know where you land in that.
And it's very hard to get out of that swamp if you did publish. Like, I've published quite a few pieces now. I've published 2 records with my own band, and I've published, we're about to publish a new record with my other band.
Name the band?
Cerulean.
There you go.
And we're about to do album number 3 with that band, and then there's another album coming with my other band, with my jazz band from Switzerland.
The one that you played vibraphone?
Yes, marimba and bass.
Oh, okay. You play also bass in that?
Yeah, mostly.
See, there's
not the instrumentalist. Wait, and what's the band called? The one that you play with in Switzerland?
The Dimitri Monstein Ensemble.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's really interesting to see because I watch Dimi, our band leader. He's working his butt off.
Yeah.
Trying to get record labels to notice him, trying to get radio stations to play his music, trying to get gigs. We're trying to like plan tours, which obviously over the past 2 years has been pretty much impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And all that. And the work you put into it is not being recognized at all.
True. It's really hard. Actually.
For a very, very long time. And if you're lucky, you can get out of that. But I've met a lot of musicians now that just do nothing but try to get their music out there with just writing new content, trying to contact people that might help them along the way. And some of them even have very good connections into the music business, but even that doesn't help because nobody really knows how to do it, right? If you don't have a backing of millions and millions of euros with, maybe a major label or something like that, I wouldn't know how to get my music out there properly. And as you say, there's so many random factors involved in that development. Even if you do work your butt off, for months and years and decades sometimes, there's no guarantee that you'll ever end up anywhere.
Have you seen Tick Tick Boom on Netflix?
No.
So it's a musical. I forgot who wrote it, but the Netflix adaptation, I think, is directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is a hot sensation on the Broadway community now. Anyway, Tick Tick Boom is a story about like that one-man show that the writer or the creator of it, he died 1 year before it actually got premiered on Broadway, and it lasted for like, I don't know, 12 years on Broadway. And it's like exactly your point as well. Like there's a lot of factors. You work your butt off and you will never know where you land.
It seems quite arbitrary when you look at it from the outside.
Yeah.
I think if you were a little more intimate with the inner workings of the music business, actually, you might make it work better.
Actually, it's all about connections, no?
Well, I don't know. It does seem like connections really play a huge role in the probability with which you eventually get somewhere. But the probability itself is still ridiculously low. And for every artist that you hear on the radio and for every artist that fills a 10,000 seater, there's, I don't know, 150 to probably 10,000 artists who don't do that and who make zero money. My band, my own progressive rock band, Ceruleum, has made zero money.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What?
I've spent way more money on it. Like if you actually calculated the amount of hours of work I put into it,
sure.
then it's you don't even need to make that calculation.
I know, because I'm also doing
just on
stuff.
paper, we haven't made any money. No.
Oh, really? Wait, but you have played like paid gigs, right?
We have played paid gigs, but not enough. And I've never really done enough in terms of promotion and in terms of getting myself out there. Because at some point I just said, I don't want to spend my days trying to navigate the online music business, because that's not something I enjoy. And doing that for too long will kind of suck the fun out of the band itself.
It does.
And for me, it was always obvious, and that maybe ties in with what we talked about, the music business aspect, like what do you do after college kind of question.
Yeah.
For me, the band was never meant to be a job. It's a passion, and that's all it is. It's a hobby, right? I think for musicians, hobbies usually have, or a lot of the time, have something to do with music as well.
True.
Because there's so many things to do, and I always wanted to stand like I always wanted to have multiple pillars to kind of base my business around. The teaching, the being on stage, and the music production are my, three kind of cornerstones.
I think that is the big three pillars anyway. Like,
yeah.
Nowadays, I totally agree. Like, I also feel that way. Like, band projects, cool. I do stuff for the bands. Yeah, sure. How many hours? Let's not talk about that. But like, it basically comes back to like, I just like doing it, even it doesn't really gain me any, like, sure, little profits here and there, but
but it's not something you can live off of. I know very, very few people who can actually live off of a band.
Yeah, that's
I don't think I know anybody who lives off just one band that is not
like the teacher at the same time, or
no, that's not a band that does like entertainment.
Like,
I don't know.
It's true, yeah, because as not as sad, but like as much as we want to be like our own creative band, like our own music, but like entertainment based music, like cover bands and like for weddings or birthdays or those kind of events is a lot more profitable.
It is ridiculously different in terms of profit.
Wait, I'm suddenly curious. I don't know if you would you guys, both of you would be interested, but
do you want to start a cover band?
No. Oh no. Oops.
I would have said no to that.
But I was thinking, like, do you think it would have if we would have lived in 1800s, we would kind of face like similar problems?
I think we would face incredibly different problems, namely not having enough food on the table and our children dying.
That is true. But like, as a musician, like, do you think back then would also be like,
I think the work was distributed a lot differently, because being a musician meant kind of needing to have an education. Right.
Then.
And being a composer, for example, meant that you needed the kind of guidance of some other composer with a name, probably, to kind of
because that's
take
also
you
what
under
I
their
felt.
wing.
Because that's what I felt like. The names that we know now, they all kind of like bros to each other.
It's the same thing, though. I mean, there's a thing called Pareto distribution, which I don't know if I can whip that off, but it essentially means in any kind of productive environment, very few of the productive elements do most of the productive work. And you can see that, for example, if you go to a classical concert, how many composers do you really listen to out of all the composers there were in history? Most of which we've never actually heard about.
True.
Right? We hear Brahms and Mendelssohn and Tchaikovsky and Mahler, and there's like maybe 30 to 50 composers that we regularly hear.
That's what I meant. Like, they also kind of, probably there are many other composers, unnamed, like kind of unnamed composers.
Yeah, but they never made it through history.
Yeah.
Not because they were bad necessarily, but because of all the other factors that, to come back to your question, yes, maybe we're still facing today. It's too much. There has to be some form of sorting. How that happens, I don't know. I can only imagine, but it's just too much music to contend with. True. And from those, maybe, I would guess 30 to 50 composers that are played very regularly, out of their entire repertoire, a very small percentage of that is being played, right?
True. Edward Grieg, for example. We have been having Edward Grieg reference for quite a while, but Grieg is one of that, like, one-hit wonder.
If you look at Grieg, for example, most of what you hear is Per Gynt and his piano concerto.
Yeah, right? It's like one-hit wonder.
He's not a one-hit wonder. I mean, he has a huge catalog. He wrote beautiful music.
But the one that people commonly know is like Per Gynt.
Yeah, the worst one is probably Ravel.
Yeah.
right? Because he has
Very
the
known for
one piece
bolero.
that you constantly hear that's being used for like every other freaking perfume commercial or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, exactly that one. But he has a huge repertoire of music that is quite different from the one piece you actually know.
Yeah, Ravel. Yeah.
And Shostakovich is another one.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the eyes of somebody who's actually educated in classical music, because I think as kind of classical music connoisseurs, well, I wouldn't call myself that, but I do listen to Shostakovich regularly. Yeah.
I don't.
And he has quite a few symphonies. I think like 11 or 12 symphonies or something like that.
No, he has more than that. He has up to 15 symphonies at least.
Really? See,
Felicia,
I haven't even heard these.
Felicia has she has an app that she listens to classical music.
Oh yeah, I Did You.
I don't know if
you've heard of that. I haven't heard of it.
See, that is another thing, right? With the music becomes so like consumable that there's a specific app for that. Yeah. But also like that is probably how you discover.
It's probably a niche product though, isn't it? Like a classical music listening app.
Yeah, it's only for classical music, but it runs all the way back to like medieval.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's something.
So anything that's really recordings for, you can find. Yeah.
Me neither. So sometimes you would come to me be like, "Oh, I'm listening to this from I Did You," and then I was like, "I've never seen that composer name ever."
Is it an app that was designed to kind of bring unknown composers to the forefront, though?
Not so sure, but I think of it like Spotify, but for classical music.
Right.
So there's still a lot of luck element, I think.
Yeah, it's not really luck though. What I've noticed.
Sorry? Because I was just going to say that they do have playlists, and then they do try to kind of diversify. So like I think a while ago it was like Black History Month, so they had like they put out all the albums that were like by famous Black composers or played by Black musicians.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah. So I think there is some attempt in trying to diversify it.
I mean,
but
Spotify also has that like similar artist recommendations or something like that. Like
what I've noticed though is no matter where you start in Spotify, you can start with the most unknown artist.
I usually do, yeah.
And then you have it on random play. So it just randomly chooses the next song for you. Within a couple songs, you're back to major labels.
True.
So there's no real random mode in Spotify. Plus, if you look at the search function, and that's another thing I think that has to do with just being overwhelmed by the mass of data that's available on Spotify. If you look for something, I noticed that because we released a single with the Mondstein Ensemble a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to look it up on Spotify, and it literally didn't show up. I typed the song name.
True. I also had
and
that problem.
I saw a couple song names that were kind of similar, but not exactly what I wrote. And then they were like, did you mean, like when you type something in wrong on Google, it says, did you mean that and that? And then they give you results that have nothing to do with what you wrote.
Yeah.
But just means something vaguely similar.
Yeah.
I got a lot of those results afterwards, but I didn't find the piece that I was actually looking for, even though I typed it in correctly into the search bar.
I had that issue as well with Of Dreams and Nightmares' first ever single.
Yeah.
Because I mean it's kind of similar to other, like the band name itself, Of Dreams and Nightmares. There are songs that called Of Dreams and Nightmares or Dreams and Nightmares. And then our song title is With You, and there you go. The Google search or the Spotify search at that time was just like, no.
Yeah. You would think that it would give you all the results that are closest to what you typed into the search bar first.
Yeah.
Right? But it doesn't.
That's interesting.
Most of the results you get are popular.
Yeah, by popular base. The more people
and
click,
kind of it pre-sorts that for you.
because the more people clicks, I think the algorithm just pushed it
exactly.
upwards. So people,
which is great because most people are probably looking for the most popular tune, and for them to find it quickly, they need a mechanic or some form of like pre-sorting apparatus to make it easier for them to find their piece. But it doesn't really make it easier for people who aren't very well known.
True.
Because they just get lost in the nether realm.
They're just lost in the swamp, as you said previously.
Exactly. And I think for all those online platforms, there at least should be a mode that you can switch on and off that kind of pre-sorts the stuff by other measures, just like tags. And I want a mode on Spotify that's like a true random mode that doesn't differentiate between popular pieces and not popular pieces. If I listen to, I don't know, psytrance, for example, and it does a random play, I want another psytrance track, but maybe not the most popular one. I don't want to listen to Infected Mushroom within like two pieces.
I agree with
if
that.
if you want to really encourage people to find new music, you need to get rid of algorithms that pre-sort by popularity, or at least give us the option of turning them on and off. Yeah. That might be one step.
I never thought of that.
That is
can take.
Mad.
And it's the same for videos on YouTube.
True.
And it's the same for, I don't know, games on gaming platforms.
True. Well, that is a business talk and a half. Robert,
well,
are you coming up with your own?
No, I'm not. I'm actually very much not a business person. It's just something I observed and I think about, because as I said, I'm about to release record 3 with my band, and I'm thinking of how to release it and if it actually makes a difference.
Worth the effort. Is it?
It is worth the effort for me, and it is worth the effort for the people that I know will listen to it.
Yeah.
But I don't expect anything to happen after that release.
Oh, wow.
I expect it to be on Spotify with 120 clicks.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Wow.
It's there for everyone who wants to listen to it. But I'm not gonna, spread myself too thin trying to get this out in the world.
That is such a good sentence. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think we've gone quite for a while. I need to check the time because I'm in charge of the timekeeping.
I just realized we're so not sharp in that picture. We're not in focus at all.
Oh yeah.
We're professionals. Sorry to everyone.
No, you know what?
Being bothered by that.
I know by the time this episode will be released, the first person that would comment about that is my dad.
Oh. Yeah.
I have never heard any other.
Well, the mic's in focus at least.
Well,
there you go.
I think I am sometimes in focus. But you,
I'm not though. I'm
the light.
Yeah. I'm not at all.
Yeah, you're almost overexposed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't know.
I'm
not a film person, as you can see. I'm a music person.
We are all not film person people. Come on, Robert. Are you kidding me? Okay. So let's kind of wrap up. Usually we wrap up with song recommendations.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Do you want to start, or usually we let our guests start, because if you have a lot of recommendations.
Oh, we should make a game out of that. Everyone should do song recommendations.
We always do song recommendations.
Well, but from very different styles.
Oh my God.
do like 3 classical pieces and 3 pop music pieces.
Oh.
Ooh.
Okay. Each of us.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And no overlaps.
Are you up for that?
Oh no,
yeah.
I don't know. Okay, yeah, sure. Why not?
I'm gonna start.
Okay, please.
Obviously,
I'm scared.
Obviously, I'm gonna have to say the Sacre du Printemps as a classical piece, The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky.
That's your favorite, eh?
It's one of my favorites, and I think it's a great piece for people who love progressive rock.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's essentially classical progressive rock. And it's very, very deep, and it's very complex.
True.
And
Rite of Spring is
lots of layers, lots of stuff to figure out.
Quite a
And it's not too
roller
long.
Coaster.
It's not even 30 minutes long, which for a classical piece is, on the shorter spectrum or shorter end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Then I would definitely recommend one Shostakovich symphony. You can, I don't know, there's so many good ones, but one I played before is number 8, and that was quite the spectacle. Like that was, quite the event playing it and listening to it. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it really gives you a good insight into his, his musical persona, if you will, and the maybe political and geographical background of that, or historical background.
I mean, Shostakovich.
That would be a whole other talk to get into that. But
we could have a talk specifically about Shostakovich if you want
definitely. And then one I recently listened to, which absolutely blew my mind, was Philip Glass's Akhenaten, the opera.
I've never. Okay.
It's like a, I don't know, three and a half hour opera or something. It's pretty long.
Yeah.
Wow.
And or is it less? I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But I listened to it recently, and it's fantastic. It's minimal music, but it's an opera. It's sung, and it's really special because it's written in a few different languages, and sometimes there's no lyrics at all. They just sing right.
Oh.
But it's Philip Glass. It's minimal music. It's very repetitive. It's based upon patterns, but it's really fascinating. And if you can listen to it or watch it on YouTube, I think there's a recording on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, because it's also visually impressive.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's great. You need to send me the link, because we have a blog. I keep saying this in all episodes. We have blogs, and we put notes like links and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you can find me the
sure,
that would be great. Okay, now should we go with the classical first? Like
do the classical. Then I have a few minutes to think about some pop music.
Okay.
Can I start the classical one, because I know you have a lot more than me.
I need to hunt for them, but sure, go ahead.
Okay, the first thing is basically coming back to, I love Tchaikovsky, and recently I've been re-listening to Swan Lake, but in particular the small swans. I don't know why. It's 1 minute 40 seconds.
It's a great choreography too.
It is very pleasing to watch. It's like so satisfying. That's probably why I watch it. That is the first classical one. The second one, does Gershwin counts as classical?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Gershwin.
You might bridge the gap between classical and pop.
Yeah. Like Gershwin, I generally like playing Gershwin. There are a couple titles that I've played. It's wonderful. It's quite basic for Gershwin. Do It Again, whatnot. Yeah. So Gershwin, basically, there's like an entire, like, there's a guy that just play like Gershwin piano solos, and I really love that album. I would also send it to you, Felicia, for the notes. So that is that. The third one, let's see. I was thinking about something with vocals, and my brain just went directly to Rossini, the cat duo. I know it's kind of like cliche for me to recommend it, but it's just so funny. So like I always love it anyway. So that three, actually, it's not I wouldn't say they're like new founds for me, obviously not. They're just like things that I go back to every once in a while. Then I'm like, oh, wait, I haven't listened to this in a long time. Let's listen to it and jam over it. Because
it's an evergreen.
Yeah.
Green. True.
Yeah.
So that's my three classical. I know it's kind of boring, but there it is. It's out.
Okay. I need to look up on my phone. Sorry. I don't have it on the top of my head. But there's a piece from, is it Shostakovich? Shostakovich, yes. And where was it? It's a variety suite. Sorry, I need to look for the title now. Suite for Variety Orchestra, sorry. Number 1, waltz number, I think it's the second piece in there, is like the waltz. And I actually first heard about this piece from YouTube because I was watching, there's a YouTuber called, I think like Matthew Buckley, and he does like line rider videos. And he did a line rider video to this piece and I really liked it a lot. So I went to listen to the piece again after that. So there's one. And then Meditation by, I can't pronounce the name. Is it Massenet? Yeah. Meditation by Massenet. Okay, good.
Jules Massenet, I think it's pronounced. I don't know.
Don't know.
French people fact checking.
Oops. Well, sorry if I mispronounced the name, but
it reminds me of the time that you couldn't pronounce Dvorak.
I really couldn't pronounce his name. My gosh.
Dvorak?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes no sense.
I'm not going to try that.
You actually see the name written.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And a piece from Greek, Norwegian Dance.
Oh, you
Opus 35, number 1.
Me.
I think I mentioned it to you, right? I don't think I mentioned this one to the podcast yet.
Mm-hmm. The Norwegian Dance.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's cool. Okay. Woo, 1 round survive.
Can I recommend albums as well?
Sure.
Or does it have to be songs?
I mean, hey, I recommend like Gershwin, like I named like an entire
just Gershwin. There you go.
No, the piano solos.
So I was gonna go back into like my earlier progressive rock days.
Yeah.
That stuff that influenced me. And obviously I have to pick a Genesis record. Contrary to popular opinion, I think my favorite record is And Then There Were Three, which was done shortly after somebody left. I don't know. I'm not that good with band histories.
Me neither.
There's people who are much better than that, or much better at that than me. But it's a great album, and it was one of my progressive rock, influences, if you will.
Is it also like an album that you come back?
I do regularly. Yeah, I have it on vinyl actually, and I do listen to the vinyl. Vinyl version.
You have a vinyl player.
It's over there. Yeah. Player.
I didn't see.
Yeah, I do listen to vinyl regularly. And
that's cool.
From a production standpoint, it's really interesting because there's a 2006 remaster of that record, which is just absolutely god awful. Not the record, but the remaster.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of information completely gets lost. And then you listen to the vinyl recording, to the original release, and you think, oh, wow, there's a bass in there. And Jesus, there's melodies that I've never heard before. Wow, I can actually understand what he's singing. And,
that's, mastering
all that
can make or break.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And it was released definitely in the wrong decade, though. 2006 is not a good time for masters.
I was thinking like, 2006.
No, that's not a good time. Yeah, so that's one. And Then There Were Three is the record by Genesis. Another one that I've picked up a couple years ago that I got for free because somebody had a big box of CDs in front of their house with a sign on it like, just take whatever you want. I want to get rid of them. And I picked up
for free
David Bowie's Black Star. Okay. Which I think is an absolutely fantastic record, and it bridges the gap between the pop or like art pop and jazz.
And then,
because it's quite jazzy in places, and I really like it. I'm not a typical like traditional jazz listener, but a little bit of jazzy influence here and there really can't hurt.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And another one, I need to think of a third one. So why don't you continue?
This was your game.
I have a lot of CDs that I really like, but I'm trying to pick one with, a special meaning, if you will.
Okay. So, well, do you want to start or should I start, Fish?
I can name 2 albums off the top of my head, but I have to hunt
I
for the
can
third
also
one.
name 2 on the top of my head.
Third one's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go first then.
Yeah.
So this album is Thousand Suns from Linkin Park. It's one of the more avant-garde albums they had. And it's actually the first album I bought from Linkin Park. So it's a very strange introduction to the band and the music they produce. So yeah. Then another one would be, okay, so the artist is called Stephanie Sun. She is a Singaporean singer. And the album is released a few years ago called A Dancing Van Gogh in English.
Oh.
In Mandarin, it is just 跳舞的梵谷, but direct translation. So yeah.
Okay. Those are albums, right?
Albums, yeah.
Do you have any specific song that no? If it's not, it's also fine.
You mean from the album?
Yeah.
Not really, because I usually listen to her album straight back to back.
That is a good thing that
I quite like everything quite equally.
Right. No eyes on me, eh?
I can say my third one though before you start if you need some time to think.
It's okay. I can say the first 2.
Okay. Well, we'll do 2 then.
The first 2. I mean the first. I think. For some weird reason, I didn't just came across to this song now, but I came back to it recently, and I was just like, that's kind of in my mood right now. It's Taylor Swift's "Tolerated." It's a song in 5/4, I believe, which is quite new for Taylor Swift. But she has a couple of 5/4 songs in her newest album, her most recent, which is in 2021, I believe, was released. So yeah, that's quite mainstream, but I do like that one song, Tolerated. The other recommendation is by actually a Japanese band named Red Wimp, if I'm not wrong. Red Wimps. The band did a soundtrack for Weathering with You. It's an anime movie. I believe it's not a series, it's a movie. I forgot the title of the song that I really liked, but I can put it on the notes. Anyway, that is a random artist that I just figured this week out of a sudden, and I just really like that one song that I cannot remember the title of. Because the thing is, it's not in Japanese, the title, so I should probably been able to remember it, but it's just 6 words. It's like a whole sentence. I'm bad with titles anyway, so that is my second recommendation.
All right. Well, I have a choice between 2, but I think I'm going to choose the one that's closer to prog rock, which is Mike Oldfield's Platinum, which is a record that's, well, I would call it instrumental. There's voice in it, but, well, it's not really the center point of attention there, especially the first half of it. It's kind of repetitive. It's kind of experimental, but it has some very cool grooves and very cool sounds on it. And it's just, I don't know, it's just different. And Mike Oldfield has a very kind of unique style of writing music. And production-wise, it's pretty cool. The other one would have been some Björk record, but they're all great. So
okay.
I'm just gonna say Björk and then just listen to all of her music.
That's actually not a bad shout.
There's so much you can recommend. I mean, there's thousands of albums that I've probably listened to more or less that I really loved, but got to pick a theme here.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
Suddenly I just remember something that I
See. Yeah.
but again, I'm so bad with titles. So usually I need to prepare for this because I need to look the title up.
Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, I don't remember the title. Ah, damn it. Do you have the artist you or like album or title that you want to name, the third option?
Yeah, this is hard.
Okay,
is really hard.
I can also name mine. It's Sammy Ray. The thing is, I truly forgot her songs. I listened to a couple of them, but I don't remember any of them right now. But anyway, Sammy Ray. I can also do that, just like you, just like the entire artist. She has quite unique play on pop because she also makes a little bit of like Latin or jazz elements into it, but it's still very, very, very poppy. So yeah, Sammy Ray. There it is. My third recommendation.
All right.
Cool.
Stressful.
Okay, so my third recommendation for in a pop site is a Singaporean artist, singer-songwriter, who I think is largely based in Australia actually. He's called Charlie Lim, and this album is Time/Space. Yeah, the whole album is his music tends to be very chill in a way. Like he sings and he plays guitar as well. Can't remember if he does them at the same time, but yeah, his music is very chill. It grooves as well.
It grooves. I don't think you've sent that.
No, I haven't really mentioned this one. Yeah, and I remember.
I'm sure I've sent you Sammy Ray songs.
You have to send me again.
Probably for the notes.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this because remember I said I buy albums, right? So I bought the album for Time and Space, and it was really cool because like the lyric booklet, like it's perforated on the sides, and then you had to kind of tear it to read the rest of the lyrics on the inside.
Oh.
Like it's a booklet with like perforations.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it was like a complete experience.
Yeah, you need to unveil it.
Yeah.
Right. That's cool. Okay, good challenge, Robert. You also, I think this is the first episode that will be over an hour, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How lovely.
It's fun. I think you had fun.
I did, yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
I mean, if you suddenly be like, I want to talk about this particular piece, you can also just...
If you have anything else to talk about, I'd be happy to come on again. But...
Yeah. We have we have it on
guest.
record. We also have it on record. So
yeah.
Cool. Then we just say bye, basically.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, that's it.
What an abrupt end.